I saw on your LinkedIn a week or so ago, you were giving a talk somewhere and you had a slide behind you that said AI shouldn't improve CX, it should replace it. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so I think as we work with a lot of organizations, we have also learned that a lot of organizations kind of tend to want to improve the existing customer experience. So especially when it comes to banks, they had a lot of forms. They obviously have invested a lot of money in self-service, mobile banks, and so on. And the problem with these also, it becomes kind of a channel which is obviously not easy to use, because obviously with all the stuff you want to put into it, there's going to be a lot of complexity in terms of menus and how you want to navigate. And then people tend to how can we use AI to make those better? Because a lot of people have historically then used AI to steer people into the mobile bank, maybe steer them into a self-service tool. But I think where we come from is I think you basically need to redesign everything. Because if you try to build AI on legacy, yes, sure, you're going to get some short-term results of doing that for sure. But I think if you look at the longer picture and also looking at the potential of AI technology, I think you need to start rethinking a lot, but also start rethinking channels as a whole. Because again, channels today has a tendency to be very fragmented. You can start a conversation somewhere, continue another one. It's not really kind of collecting any context or any of that history. And again, I think the promise for me, at least for AI, is basically it's representing a completely new UI, where you can then obviously talk to it or write to it, and it doesn't really matter which channel you are in. I think that's kind of the premise of the promise of the technology, which I think very few, to be honest, has really kind of go into. But I think we are now getting much more customers kind of buying into that vision and start rethinking how they do things today.
Yeah, which ultimately is what it's all about, isn't it? It's AI really is a transformative technology, and it kind of pains me a little bit when I come across them use cases, which is we've got all of these documents. Let's just, the term that started to really bug me is just talk to our data. We just want to talk to our data. It's like, do your customers just want to talk to your data? Really?
So I think hallucination is obviously still a key part of LLMs, I would say, but we need to be able to reduce that as much as possible, because that's definitely not a good customer experience for sure.
Yeah. How much of a problem is hallucinations these days then? Because if you look at your likes of Claude and ChatGPT and those kind of, again, different use cases, but the consumer facing stuff, they do tend to have hiccups every now and then, but they're an awful lot better than they were. Whereas when you're working with the API, you're not always working with the same kind of layers of guardrails and all that kind of stuff that those applications have. So what's your sort of perspectives now on is the risk of hallucination still a real risk, or is it largely a solved problem?
I would definitely say it's still a big risk. And I think for the consumer-facing one, what I learned using the tool, I obviously use AI a lot. They tend to want to please you.
Yeah.
So for example, I'm very keen of running, so I'm coming back from injury now. And then if I have any kind of good progress in the injury, then I will obviously ask the LLM just to see, okay, how I'm tracking on this injury right now. Can I increase the volume of running now since I'm feeling better? And then depending on how I ask the question, it will come back with very different response, because obviously you want to please me. If I'm very cautious when asking, maybe I need to be a bit more cautious there. I say, yes, of course, you are totally right. You need to be cautious there. On the other side, saying, hey, I have a race next week. It's a good idea. And I have not practiced it for it. Yeah, it's probably going to be stretched. We probably can get you there. So I think it's still a challenge. But I think when it comes to kind of businesses, when you serve on customer service, you don't really have that type of conversations. Every conversation will be very much dedicated to one use case. You have kind of one problem you want to solve. So then it's obviously much easier to put guardrails on it. And at Boost, we have basically, we're done a bit unique in terms of guardrail. We're not building in guardrails in the instruction. We actually have separate LLMs monitoring the conversation. So as you go as part of the conversation, there's actually going to be numerous different LLMs monitoring the conversation to come in and kind of grab that conversation and then have obviously an escalation on that if needed. So that means that I'm not going to say it's going to be 0 chance of hallucination, but you're getting pretty close to 0% of hallucination, which is obviously a good thing.
That's brilliant, yeah, because that was the big prohibitor for a long time, I think, really.
I think we are going to continue seeing a significant investment in voice, and people have a bit different perspective where they want to start. Again, it's very easy to take in traditional IVR, kind of just rip it out, and then do more kind of intelligent routing. So basically have a much natural conversation. Things like authentication of the user. It's also very useful using AI. Like we have customers like spending maybe up to 1 minute per conversation just to authenticate the user. And we start adding kind of some of these things. It obviously creates a very healthy business case. But again, the coolest stuff you can do is obviously then when you can do end-to-end automation. So you start the conversation, authenticate the user, and then you kind of follow out the whole conversation on voice. So I think we probably predicted that there's going to be 2025, 2024 is going to be kind of the year of voice, but I think 2026 is definitely where we've seen a significant uptick for sure. Just looking at the whole use case, like if we do tackle everything a customer can do on voice, we typically saw maybe 20 to 30% automation. So when we talk about automation, it's basically containment, or you're actually able to resolve that conversation or that question for the customer. So that's kind of how we define automation here. So that's, of course, not going into the contact center. What we have seen the last 6 months is that 20-30% has become now 60 and 70%, and we actually have some customers being 75% automation. You can imagine 75% automation of all your incoming phones. That's a pretty big number.
We did an event last, a couple of weeks ago anyway. Nick and Sherry on your side were there actually. And what we did is before the event, we called everybody with a voice AI agent trained on my voice. And so it was just sounded like me making them a phone call saying, "Hey, are you still coming? You got any dietary requirements?" Stuff like that. Okay, yes. Which was brilliant. It was a great kind of a great touch. But what was really interesting was that it was hitting call screening. You know, on people's phones where it just doesn't answer, and it basically like an AI will just answer it for you, and it'll just screen the call. Who are you? What you're calling for? And so our voice AI was hitting people's call screening, telling them who it is and what I'm calling for. The call screening was going back to the person saying, "Hey, it's Kane calling about the event. He wants to know if you're going to turn up." That person then said, yeah, I'll be there. Their kind of call screening agent come back into the call and says, yeah, Jim will be there. And they was like, okay, brilliant, I'll mark him down as coming. And that was it. So it was like two agents talking to each other. So it's happening now, you know. Hope you enjoyed that clip just there. If you want to see the full episode, you can check out the link to that right here. And do not forget, if you want more episodes like this, interviews with the world's leading AI leaders and practitioners, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel.